The wealthy hospital owner, disguised as an ordinary maintenance worker, discovers the quiet nurse doing something completely unexpected after the cruel chief surgeon publicly humiliates her in the worst possible way. What happens next is unbelievable. Tonight, we're stepping inside the chaotic of St. Mercy Hospital, a place that should be a beacon of hope, but has become a pressure cooker of exhaustion, fear, and broken dreams in a gritty post-pandemic city where families are barely holding on. This is the true story of one yanked strand of hair, and how it sparked a chain of kindness that would heal an entire community. Let me introduce you to our heroine, Elena Ramirez, 28 years old, the quiet nurse everyone relies on but almost no one truly sees. Every single morning starts the same for Elena. Her alarm blares at 5:30 a.m. in their tiny, two-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city. She doesn't hit snooze. She can't. Her 15-year-old brother, Mateo, is still asleep in the next room. She tiptoes in, kisses his forehead, and whispers, "You're going to do great on that math test today, okay?" Because Elena knows what it feels like to lose everything. 8 years ago, her mother died in a crumbling public clinic because the doctor was too rushed to listen. Elena has carried that guilt like a stone in her chest ever since. She works double night shifts just to keep the lights on and Mateo in school. Her uniform is always freshly ironed, even though she washes it in the sink at midnight. She rides the overcrowded bus, clutching her worn backpack that contains the only two things that keep her going: a small notebook where she writes down every patient's favorite song or joke, and a photo of her mother smiling when she arrives at St. Mercy, the EEE already exploding with chaos, sirens, crying children, worried families speaking languages the staff barely understand. But Elena moves like a quiet shadow through it all. While others rush, she notices the little things. She tucks an extra warmed blanket around a shivering toddler. She leans down to an elderly man who's afraid of needles and tells him a silly joke about his favorite football team until he laughs. She holds the hand of a scared immigrant mother and says softly in broken Spanish, "You're not alone tonight. I've got you." Kindness isn't extra for Elena. It's how she survives. But not everyone in this area values that softness. Standing at the center of it all is Chief Surgeon Dr. Harlan Voss, -45, brilliant and terrifying. He barks orders like a general. He believes weakness costs lives. What no one knows is that Voss grew up orphaned, fighting for every scholarship, every exam, every chance. He built armor around his heart, so thick that now even he can't feel anything anymore. And then there's the man almost no one notices, the quiet maintenance worker mopping floors in the corner. His name is Marcus Hale. But what nobody in the hospital knows is that Marcus is actually the owner of St. Mercy Hospital. Years ago, as a broke patient with nothing, a stranger paid his medical bill and changed his life. Marcus made a vow he would return undercover to see if his hospital still had a heart. For weeks he's been watching, and what he's seen has broken him. Now, on this storm-lashed night, everything is about to change. A 5-year-old boy is crashing. The team is panicking. Elena, who has quietly studied every protocol on her own time, steps forward and calmly suggests a gentler approach that could save the child without more trauma. Dr. Voss spins around, eyes blazing with rage. In front of patients, nurses, and orderlies, He grabs Elena by her ponytail and yanks her head back violently. "You think you know better than me?" He snarls. "Stay in your lane, nurse." The entire air freezes. Elena's eyes fill with tears of humiliation, but she doesn't fight back. She doesn't scream. Instead, she gently pulls away, straightens her uniform, and walks straight to the terrified immigrant mother clutching her sick toddler in the corner. She kneels down, wipes the mother's tears, and whispers, "Your son is going to be okay. I promise I'll stay right here with you." That single act of grace, after being publicly humiliated, is what the disguised owner, Marcus Hale, sees from the shadows. Marcus Hale had seen a lot in his months undercover. Overworked nurses crying in supply closets. Families turned away because of paperwork errors. Doctors so burned out they barely looked patients in the eye. But what he witnessed tonight shattered something inside him. Elena Ramirez, after having her hair violently yanked in front of 30 people, didn't run to the break room to cry. She didn't file a complaint. She didn't even raise her voice. She walked straight to Mrs. Alvarez, the young mother from Guatemala, whose toddler had a dangerously high fever, and stayed with her until the child's breathing steadied. Marcus watched. Elena wiped the mother's tears with the sleeve of her own scrub top. He heard her whisper, "I know what it's like to be scared for your baby. My mom, she didn't make it because no one slowed down to listen. I won't let that happen to your little one." Something cracked open in Marcus's chest. He remembered the stranger who'd paid his hospital bill 15 years ago, when he was bleeding out from a construction accident with no insurance. That one act had given him a future. Now he was watching the same kind of grace, and it was being crushed under the heel of his own hospital's chief surgeon. He couldn't stay hidden anymore. Not tonight. Later that same shift, around 3 a.m., when the storm had finally quieted, Marcus pushed his cleaning cart past the nurse's station. Elena was there alone, charting quietly under the fluorescent light. Her ponytail was slightly crooked now, a few strands still loose from where Voss had grabbed her. She didn't notice him at first. Marcus stopped, cleared his throat. "Long night, huh?" he said gently. Elena looked up, startled, then offered the small, tired smile she gave everyone. "They all are. But the kids are breathing easier now. That's what matters." Marcus hesitated. He wasn't supposed to talk much. Maintenance workers were invisible by design. But he couldn't walk away. "I saw what happened earlier," he said quietly. "With Dr. Voss?" Elena's smile faltered for half a second. She looked down at her chart. "It's okay. It happens sometimes when people are stressed." "It's not okay," Marcus said, firmer than he intended. "No one should put their hands on you like that, ever." She met his eyes then, really looked at him. Most people didn't. Most people saw the uniform and looked right through. "Thank you," she said softly. "But I've got thick skin. I have to." Marcus reached into his pocket. He pulled out a small, folded $20 bill, one of the few he carried to look authentic. He slid it across the counter toward her. "For coffee," he said. "Or whatever you need. You deserve at least one thing that's easy tonight." Elena stared at the bill like it was a foreign object. Then she pushed it gently back. "I can't take that," she said. "But, thank you, really. It means more than you know that someone noticed." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. He nodded once, then added, "I'm Marcus. If you ever need an extra hand or just someone to listen, I'm around." "Elena," she replied, offering the smallest real smile he'd seen all night. "And I'll remember that." He walked away, heart pounding. That small exchange, $20 she wouldn't take, a name exchanged in the dead of night, was the first thread of connection. The first crack in the wall between the invisible owner and the invisible nurse. Over the next few nights, Marcus found small ways to be near her without being obvious. He left a fresh, hot coffee on the counter labeled, "For the nurse who never stops." Elena drank it gratefully, looking around, wondering who'd left it. He overheard her talking to another nurse about how her brother, Matteo, needed new shoes for school. The soles were flapping, and the next evening, a brand-new pair of sneakers appeared in the staff locker room with a simple note, "Size 9 men's. Pass it forward when he outgrows them." Elena never knew it was Marcus, but each small gesture chipped away at the armor she'd built around her heart. She started looking for the quiet maintenance man in the hallways. When their eyes met, she'd give a tiny nod, a silent thank you. And Marcus? For the first time in years, he felt like he wasn't just watching a broken system. He was starting to become part of the fix. One night, after a particularly brutal 12-hour shift, Elena sat on the bench outside the ambulance bay, head in her hands. Marcus approached slowly. "Rough one?" he asked. She looked up, eyes red. For once, she didn't hide it. "My brother's school called. He's failing math. I promised him I'd help, but I'm barely keeping us afloat. I don't know how to be everything he needs." Marcus sat beside her, not too close, just present. "You're already more than enough," he said quietly. "You're showing him what it looks like to keep going even when it hurts. That's the biggest lesson anyone can give." Elena let out a shaky breath. "I just wish I could do more." "You will," Marcus said. "One step at a time." He didn't tell her who he really was. Not yet. But in that moment, trust began to bloom, fragile, quiet. And real dot, before we continue with this incredible journey, I spent countless hours researching and crafting this story to bring you something truly meaningful. If stories like this touch your heart and you want to see more acts of kindness that restore faith in humanity, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. It means the world to me and helps these important stories reach others who need to hear them. Now, let's see what happens next. Have you ever witnessed an act of kindness that completely changed your perspective? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one. Over the next few weeks, something rare began to form between the disguised hospital owner and the quiet nurse. Real trust. Marcus kept his identity hidden, but he couldn't stop finding ways to lighten Elena's load. When he overheard her on the phone with Matteo's school counselor, voice cracking as she promised to pay the overdue tutoring fees, he anonymously wired the exact amount through the school's hardship fund the next day. When Elena came in looking pale after pulling 3 doubles in a row, he accidentally left pain relievers and a heating pad in the staff lounge with her name on them. Elena started to open up in small ways. During slow moments in the corridor, she'd tell him about Matteo's dream of becoming an engineer, about how she stayed up helping him study even when her own eyes were burning. She talked about her mother, the laugh she had, the way she used to braid Elena's hair while singing old lullabies. Marcus listened without judgment, without offering solutions she hadn't asked for. He just stayed. One evening, after a code blue that ended badly, Elena found Marcus cleaning the trauma bay alone. She leaned against the doorway, arms crossed tight. "I keep thinking, if I'd spoken up sooner tonight, maybe that man would still be here," she whispered. Marcus set the mop aside. "You did everything you could. Sometimes the body just gives up. It's not on you." She looked at him then, really looked, and for the first time let the tears fall. "I'm so tired of losing people," she said. "I'm tired of feeling like I'm not enough to save anyone." Marcus took one careful step closer. "You saved Mrs. Alvarez's boy last week. You saved that elderly woman from panicking so badly she coded. You save people every single shift, Elena, just by being you." She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "You always know what to say." "I just say what's true," he replied softly. For a moment they stood in silence, the hum of the hospital around them. It was the closest either of them had come to admitting how much the other mattered. But kindness like this doesn't go unnoticed forever, and it doesn't come without cost. Word began to spread among the staff about the guardian angel leaving small gifts. Gift cards and lockers, paid-off parking tickets, even a rent payment mysteriously covered for one of the older nurses facing eviction. Some whispered it was a secret admirer. Others suspected administration testing morale. Dr. Voss noticed too, and he didn't like mysteries he couldn't control. One afternoon, Voss cornered Elena in the supply closet while she was restocking. "I hear you've got yourself a fan club," he sneered. "Little gifts showing up. You spreading rumors about me to get sympathy?" Elena straightened, voice steady. "I don't know what you're talking about, Dr. Voss, and I don't spread rumors." He stepped closer, looming. "Keep playing the saint, Ramirez. But saints don't last long in my AA. One more suggestion from you during my shift, and you'll be scrubbing bedpans and post-op for the rest of your career." Elena didn't flinch, but inside fear coiled tight. She couldn't afford to lose this job. Mateo's school fees, rent, groceries, everything balanced on that paycheck. That night she sat on the apartment couch with Mateo, pretending to watch TV while her mind raced. Mateo noticed. "You okay, sis?" She forced a smile. "Just tired, Mio." He hugged her sideways. "You don't have to carry everything alone, you know." But she did. She always had. Meanwhile, Marcus faced his own test. He'd been funneling small amounts from personal funds to help staff, nothing that could be traced back easily. But the hospital's board was starting to ask questions about unexplained morale-boosting expenses. A few members wanted audits. If they dug too deep, his cover would blow before he was ready. Before the hospital was ready for real change, he sat in the empty cafeteria at 4 a.m., staring at his coffee, wondering if he should pull back, if helping Elena and the others was putting everything at risk. Then he remembered her face after Voss's threat, the way she'd squared her shoulders, anyway, and gone back to work. He couldn't stop now. The next shift, he found Elena outside again, staring at the sky. "Rough day?" he asked. She laughed without humor. "Rough week. Voss basically threatened my job today." Marcus's jaw tightened. "He can't do that." He can. He's chief. I'm just a nurse. Marcus looked at her, really looked, and made a decision. You're not just anything, he said quietly. And you're not alone in this. Elena searched his face. Why do you care so much, Marcus? You barely know me. He hesitated, then answered with the most honest thing he could say without revealing everything. Because someone once cared about me when no one else did. And it changed my whole life. I'm just paying it forward. She nodded slowly, eyes shining. Then thank you for seeing me. But doubt crept in for Elena, too. She started second-guessing every interaction with Marcus. Was he too kind? Was there a catch? She'd learned early that nothing came free. One night she confronted him gently in the hallway. If there's something you want from me, just say it. I'd rather know. Marcus felt the words like a punch. There's nothing I want, Elena, I swear. I see how hard you fight for everyone else. Someone should fight for you. She studied him a long moment, then gave the smallest nod. Okay, she whispered. I believe you. But the obstacles kept mounting. Voss doubled down, assigning Elena the hardest cases, the longest shifts. Mateo's grades slipped further because Elena was too exhausted to help, and Marcus knew the clock was ticking. If he didn't act soon, the small ripples of kindness might drown before they became a wave. Marcus could no longer hide. He had watched long enough. He had seen Voss's cruelty spread like poison, nurses flinching when he entered a room. Patients are receiving brusque care instead of compassion. Elena quietly absorbing blow after blow while still giving everything she had. The small acts of anonymous kindness had helped, but they weren't enough. The hospital needed structural change. It needed truth. He called an emergency all-staff meeting for 7 a.m., right at shift change. Every nurse, doctor, orderly, tech, and administrator was required to attend. Rumors flew. Layoffs, budget cuts, maybe even Voss getting promoted. No one expected what came next. The auditorium was packed and restless when Marcus walked onto the stage, not in a suit, but still wearing the same faded work boots he'd mopped floors in for months. Whispers erupted. Good morning, he began, voice calm but carrying to every corner. My name is Marcus Hale. I am the owner of St. Mercy Hospital. Gasps. Phones came out. Someone in the back muttered, no way. For the last 6 months, he continued, I've worked here undercover as a maintenance worker. I wanted to really see what kind of care we're giving. What I found broke my heart, but it also showed me hope. He looked directly at Elena, who sat near the front row. Frozen. I watched a nurse get publicly humiliated by our chief surgeon, hair yanked, dignity stripped, and then immediately turn around and comfort a terrified mother. I watched exhausted staff still find ways to care. I watched one act of grace start a quiet chain reaction. Coffee left for someone, shoes for a kid, rent covered. Listening when no one else would. He held up a hand to quiet the rising murmurs. I didn't come here to fire anyone. I came here to rebuild what we've lost. Starting today, no one will be punished for speaking up about patient care. No one will be penalized for showing basic human decency. And Dr. Voss. Marcus turned to where Voss sat, arms crossed, face pale. You're not terminated, but you are stepping down as chief, effective immediately. You'll be required to complete a 6-month intensive program on trauma-informed leadership and emotional intelligence, built from the real stories of this staff. If you choose not to participate, then yes, your employment will end." Voss stood abruptly. "This is outrageous." "You can't, I can," Marcus said evenly, "because I own the hospital, and I choose compassion over control." The room exploded, some cheering, some stunned silent, a few nurses crying openly. Marcus continued, "We're also launching the Hall Compassion Fund, funded personally by me, to support staff facing hardship, child care, education, mental health days, rent relief. No questions asked." And Elena Ramirez. He looked straight at her again. "You've been carrying this place on your back while barely holding your own life together. Starting today, your tuition for finishing your advanced nursing degree is covered in full, and you'll have protected time each week to study. You deserve to grow, not just survive." Elena's hands flew to her mouth. Tears spilled over. She shook her head in disbelief. Marcus stepped off the stage and walked directly to her. The room quieted. "I'm sorry it took me so long to step out of the shadows," he said quietly, just for her. "But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Elena stood, trembling, and hugged him, the first time anyone had ever seen her break protocol like that. The room erupted again, this time in sustained applause. In the weeks that followed, the transformation was visible. Voss, stripped of his title and ego, began the program reluctantly, but something shifted. In one session, he listened to a recording of his own voice berating staff, and for the first time in decades, he cried. He started apologizing, awkward, halting apologies, but real. He began asking nurses for input during rounds instead of barking orders. Slowly, painfully, the armor cracked. Elena threw herself into her studies with a fire she hadn't felt since before her mother died. Mateo's grades climbed, not because she had more time, but because she had hope. She started tutoring other struggling students in the hospital's new after-school program for staff kids. The Compassion Fund became legendary. A single mother orderly got her car repaired so she didn't lose her job. An immigrant tech received legal help to bring his family over safely. Word spread beyond the hospital walls. Patients noticed the difference, softer voices, more eye contact, actual listening. Mrs. Alvarez returned months later with her healthy toddler to thank Elena in person, bringing homemade tamales for the whole night shift, and then came the full circle moment. One stormy night, almost exactly a year after that. Original incident. A young intern made a small mistake during a trauma case. Voss, now back in a teaching role, stepped in, not to yell, but to correct gently. When the intern looked ready to crumble, Voss said quietly, "We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do next." Elena, now wearing the badge of nurse educator, happened to be passing by. She paused, smiled at Voss, and gave him the smallest nod. He returned it. No words needed. Later that same shift, a frightened teenage boy was brought in after a car accident. Elena knelt beside his bed, held his hand, and whispered the same words she once used on so many others. "You're not alone tonight. I've got you." From the corner of the room, Marcus, no longer hiding, just quietly observing as himself, watched it all. He smiled, tears in his eyes. One yanked strand of hair had exposed cruelty, but it had also unleashed kindness. And kindness, once released, doesn't stop at one person. It spreads through apologies, through second chances, through tuition paid and rent covered and hands held, until an entire hospital, an entire community, begins to breathe differently. This story shows how one act of kindness can change everything. What's one way you could make a difference in someone's life today? Challenge yourself and share your commitment in the comments. 1 year later, Elena Ramirez is no longer just surviving. She's thriving. She graduated with honors from her advanced nursing program, the one Marcus made possible, and now splits her time between bedside care and teaching new nurses how to balance clinical skill with genuine compassion. She still works nights sometimes because she says that's where the real heart of the hospital lives. But now she has help, a small team of peer mentors she helped create, all former quiet shadows like her. Mateo is in his senior year of high school, on track for an engineering scholarship, and he still calls her every night to say good night. No matter how late her shift runs, Dr. Harlan Voss never quite became the warm, teddy bear type. That wouldn't be authentic, but he became something better, human. He completed the leadership program, then asked to stay on as a senior attending and mentor. He now starts every trauma case by saying the same sentence: "Team, what are we missing? Speak freely." Staff who once flinched when he entered a room now seek him out for advice. He keeps a small photo on his desk, not of awards or family, he still has none, but of that stormy night a year ago. Captured on a security still, Elena comforting Mrs. Alvarez right after he'd humiliated her. He looks at it every morning as a reminder. Marcus Hale stepped fully into the light as owner. He sold off non-essential real estate holdings to fund the Compassion Fund permanently. It's now an endowment that will outlive him. He still walks the halls, sometimes in plain clothes, just to listen. Patients and staff know him now, not as the boss, but as Marcus who actually cares. He and Elena remain close friends. They meet for coffee once a month, no agenda. Just two people who once saw each other when no one else did. The ripples never stopped. Mrs. Alvarez's community started a small support group for immigrant families navigating health care. Elena speaks at their meetings when she can. Orderlies who once shared coffee breaks now organize food drives for night shift workers. A junior doctor who defended Elena that first night is now chief resident, running rounds with the same calm kindness she learned by watching. The hospital's patient satisfaction scores climbed steadily, not because of new equipment, but because people felt seen. St. Mercy isn't perfect. Budgets are still tight. Some nights are still chaos. But the culture has changed. Cruelty is no longer tolerated as just stress. Kindness is no longer invisible. It's expected, celebrated, protected. And it all traces back to one moment, a hand grabbing hair in rage, and the quiet choice to respond with love anyway. Stories like this remind us that extraordinary kindness exists all around us, often in the people we overlook, in the small choices we make when no one is watching. If this touched your heart, please like this video. It helps more people discover these inspiring stories. Subscribe for more tales of human kindness that will restore your faith in humanity. And most importantly, look for opportunities in your own life to be someone's unexpected blessing. What act of kindness will you perform this week? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one, and your words often become the spark for someone else watching. Thank you for spending this time with me, with Elena, with Marcus, with all of them. Remember, you have the power to change someone's entire world, one heartbeat at a time.